Hello, good to see you once again on Tax Matters. Like we asked the last time we came your way, how did you cope with the lockdown? Or should we say, how have you been coping, depending on the part of the country you're watching us from? We salute your courage. We salute your cooperation with government. We are all in this together. And still on salutes, we salute all workers on the occasion of Workers' Day, which was marked all over the world on May 1st. And we salute all frontline workers in the collective battle against COVID-19. Doctors, nurses, all the way down to cleaners, to ambulance drivers. Everyone has been wonderful. Thank you, and thank you. The program is Tax Matters, and on this episode, we will be filling you in on happenings in the taxation subsector, because we know that we are all going to rise above all this and pick up the pieces of our businesses, and we will make money and we will pay taxes. Permit us to begin by reminding us all that effective May 1st, 2020, Taxpayer Identification Number (TIN) will be required for the operation of all business accounts, be they enterprise, partnership, or limited liability. Let us also remind you that 50 Naira stamp duty is due on every bank transaction in the sum of 10,000 Naira and above. Now to the cheering news of the superlative performance of the FRS in terms of tax collection in Q1 2020. If you ask me, the performance is actually that of the taxpayers. Well, the story is that between January and March 2020, the FRS collected a whopping sum of 1.2 trillion Naira, which amounted to 156 billion Naira above what was collected in the corresponding period in 2019. This is 15% increase quarter on quarter. The 15% increase is a first in the history of first quarter collection by the FRS since its establishment in colonial times. And this is attributed to the wide-ranging policy reforms and institutional reorganization initiated by the Executive Chairman, Mr. Muhammad Nami, since he assumed office in December 2019. Details of the result indicate a 568% increase in capital gains tax. Gas income tax rose by 420%, while petroleum profit tax rose by 9%. Companies' income tax increased by 152% quarter on quarter, while information technology tax rose by 522%. Stamp duty increased by 40%, while value-added tax collected on imports by Nigerian Customs Service rose by 27%. VAT on local goods and services rose by 13%. To throw more light on this superlative performance of the FRS, which was achieved in the midst of the monumental fall in the price of crude petroleum on the international market and the shock imposed on economies around the world by COVID-19, we have with us on the program Mr. Gabriel Ogunjemilisi, Director and Head of Large Tax Department, Oil and Gas at the FRS. Mr. Ogunjemilisi, thank you for joining us on Tax Matters.
Thank you for having me here, my sister.
We are looking at the first quarter 2020 tax collection report of the FRS, and we noticed that one of the sub-heads is gas income tax. Now we are familiar with petroleum profit tax. Which one is gas income tax?
Okay, thank you. Gas income tax is just a tax that is levied on upstream gas production. In the upstream, you have associated gas and you have non-associated gas. Part of the fiscal incentive given in the Act is that gas that are produced upstream, associated or non-associated, are to be subject to tax under Companies Income Tax Act. That is, as their rate is not like PPT. Though they administer other PPT, but they are subject to tax under Companies Income Tax Act. That's why we call it gas income gas income tax.
This gas income tax was said to have yielded 15.48 billion naira. How did the FRS achieve this?
Thank you. You call it palliative? Yes, it is. It's just like a serial offshoot from what it was in the first quarter of last year. What accounted for these of different layers. One, let me first of all say that the federal government policy on accountability and transparency in the reporting of government businesses accounted for it first, and then the management of FRS in engagement of taxpayers, of which NNPC is one of them, also helped in achieving that feat. The majority of the money that made up that money came from NNPC gas, which is part of the equity of government in the joint ventures of in the upstream. So government before now the tax has not been paid on it separately to FRS. It was paid in the past along with the gas sales into federation account. The government said it should be account for tax separately and account for the gas sales. So that's what we now started having it in this year from January to March, and it account. Then other issues are although some areas too that were paid by taxpayers that have not been paid before. We collected them in the first quarter also. Then the issue of reorganization of the service by the new management also helped a lot in terms of having a good structure now in place, of which people now know which department you need to work with, and by putting people that are fit to each department to pilot, to drive the functions of the department, is also helping a lot. Okay.
Now, amidst this COVID-19 pandemic that has posed as a challenge to us, as the director, a large tax department, oil and gas at the FRS, what are your expectations as we've now moved into the second quarter 2020?
Already you know that presently we're having a serious challenge in the oil and gas industry as regards the prices of crude oil has seriously crashed. I mean, as still keeping going downward. In the news yesterday, the Minister of Finance was saying that said that there's going to be likely review of the budget benchmark of crude oil price to $20. You know, about 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, it was reduced to $35, so there's going to be a further reduction. Definitely that one will have effect on the crude oil and the taxes that are going to be paid by the petroleum companies. That's one. Then even the OPEC has reduced the production quota to countries, members countries are going to be reduced. That means the projection we are having, the government had initially for crude oil production, is no longer going to be what was projected. I think from 2.3 it has now gone to 1.7, and it may likely go down further because the demand now is very low. You know very well there's not hardly the aviation industry are not flying. Most people are parking their cars at home, throughout almost globally. So the consumption of crude of petroleum is actually reduced. So definitely reduce the price. And when you have the supply higher than the demand, definitely the price will do what? Will fall. So then with that in mind, it may have effect. It's going to have effect on the revenue that will flow definitely from oil industry. There's nothing we can do about that except miracles happens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ogunjemilisi.
Thank you very much. You are welcome.
Do you provide goods and services? Then you must answer these important questions. Are you registered for VAT? Do you charge VAT on the goods and services you provide? Do you keep records of all your transactions? Do you file VAT returns? Do you remit VAT collected to government coffers? If your answer to any of these questions is no, then you are breaking the law. The law demands total compliance. Therefore, you must register for VAT. You must charge VAT on goods and services. You must file VAT returns. And you must remit all VAT collected on behalf of government within 21 days to the bank nearest to you. To do otherwise is a crime punishable everywhere in the world. VAT is prescribed by the law. Do the right thing. collect and pay VAT. This message is from the FIRS. It pays to pay your tax.
You are still on to Tax Matters. It's a season of palliatives, and so the Federal Inland Revenue Service has released its own palliative measures to cushion the effect of COVID-19 on taxpayers. In a press release issued at the end of a meeting held on the 31st of March 2020, following the imposition of lockdown on the FCT, Lagos and Ogun states, the FRS, fully conscious of how the restriction of movement would affect the movement of taxpayers to and from tax offices, and fully committed to supporting taxpayers to thrive even as the service is faced with the pressure of generating increased tax revenue for the government, the Executive Chairman Malam Muhammad Nami has directed the provision of dedicated email addresses, one for every tax office, that taxpayers can use to submit documents or file returns rather than physically visiting the tax office. The email address of each tax office is available on the FRS website. The Executive Chairman FRS has also approved that taxpayers can pay now and file later while enjoying full waiver of late return penalty. With regards to remittance of VAT and withholding tax, which ordinarily are due on the 21st day of the month, approval has been given for this to be filed at the end of the month, a grace of 9 days. Still on the palliatives, taxpayers whose taxes are paid in foreign exchange have been given approval to pay in Naira at the prevailing I&E window rate on the day of payment. SOCO has also come for filers of payee returns with the External Affairs Ministry, non-resident individuals and armed forces and police personnel. Approval has been given for extension to 30th of June 2020. Finally, field audit, investigation and monitoring visits to taxpayer offices have been put on hold. Thank you for staying with us. We trust that you have decided to accept the hand of fellowship extended by the FRS and that many of you have decided right now to heed the call and pay your taxes because, you see, government needs all revenues it can lay its hands on to prosecute this war against COVID-19. You can pay online using the TSA platform of Remitter, and it is easy. Just follow the following steps. Step 1. Visit www.remitter.net and click on the Pay Taxes button. Step 2. Select the type of tax you want to pay. Step 3. For withholding tax and payee, click on the Click Here link to generate an upload file to populate and upload accordingly. Step 4. Complete the online pay-in form by inputting the payer TIN, amounts to pay, and so on. Step 5. Select how you want to pay: bank branch, online card, internet banking, wallet, and USSD, or as a Remitter registered user. Step 6. Complete your payment and a payment receipt will be generated, which can be printed online and also be sent to the specified email address. You see, it's as simple as ABC. It has been a challenging time these past few weeks, what with having to cope with sitting at home for 5 to 6 weeks, closing down operations and all that. Tax Matters spoke to Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, Fiscal Policy Partner and West African Tax Leader at PwC, on the findings of a survey carried out by his firm on how corporate organizations have been coping with the COVID-19 lockdown and the expectations from government. Thank you, Mr. Oyedele, for joining us on Tax Matters.
Thank you for having me.
We have in our possession the report of a survey your firm conducted with CEOs on coping with the COVID-19 lockdown. Would you be kind to share highlights of your findings with our viewers?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm happy to share the highlights of the findings. So this was a survey that we conducted and administered to business executives, including CEOs and business owners. Over 2,800 of them responded.
Okay.
And the organizations they represented include multinationals, large local firms, SMEs, as well as even private companies and NGOs. So in terms of the designation, like I said, we had CEOs, managing directors, CFOs, managers, and public officers. The sectors they represented pretty much cover all the sectors of the economy, from agriculture to banking to insurance to telecommunication, oil and gas, healthcare, education, and so on and so forth. And one of the questions we asked them was, how long do you think that the impact of COVID-19 will last? And we find out that 22% of them think that it will be about 3 months. Then about 31% think that it will be between 3 to 6 months. And 24% think that it will be 6 to 12 months. And then 22% think that it will be longer than 1 year. Then we asked them about their pressing business needs, what's most important to them at this time. And number one thing was liquidity, which means money in the bank to pay your bills as they fall due, including salaries, rent, utility. And the number two concern for them was safety of their staff, which is very interesting. People are concerned about the safety of their employees. And number three concern for them was infrastructure to work from home. We know because of COVID-19, many people are having to work from home. But then you have to worry about electricity, quality of internet, data. Even some people don't even have this space because they live in one small place with family, with kids, and it's difficult to work under those circumstances. The other question we asked was whether they were planning to retain staff or whether they want to lay off. And we found out that 78% are planning to keep their staff as best as possible. And 22% are planning to lay off. That's about a little bit more than 1 in every 5 is planning to lay off. We also asked whether government intervention would influence their decision if they are planning to lay off. And it turns out that 55% said it doesn't matter what government does, they will still lay off staff. But there's 45% who would change their mind depending on the magnitude of government relief that they're able to get. And then we asked how COVID-19 would affect the investment decision of businesses. And we were told by those businesses, about 13% of them see opportunity to invest more. About 19% would reduce their investments. And a very large percentage, about 57%, would delay their investment, which means they will still invest, but not now. And then we asked them about whether they think that government intervention is sufficient. And 23.8% said government intervention is grossly inadequate. And then you find that about 44% said it is inadequate. If you put that together, you find that about 67% think that government can do a lot better. Then we asked them whether where the areas where they would like government intervention to focus on. And 16.9% want government to transfer money to poor people. But a bigger percentage, 30%, want tax relief, followed by those who want loans at 0% or lower interest rate. That was 29%. So overall, the number one area where people want government intervention is tax relief, followed by loans at 0 rate or lower interest rate, followed by cash transfer to the poor. Then we then asked whether in what way can the private sector support the effort of government in fighting COVID-19. A very large percentage will provide items and equipment and material to government rather than pay cash to them. Only 10% are willing to donate cash, and only 2% are willing to pay more taxes. The others will prefer that they give the items. So this is overall the highlights of our survey.
Interesting. But what are your own conclusions on the views expressed by the respondents or on your findings?
I think my view on it is that it's not very different from what we would normally expect. And a lot of it is also consistent with what we see across the globe in terms of a lot of governments introducing palliatives, including tax reliefs, incentives, waivers, and some countries are even giving, their incentive is cash-based, so you get money from government to protect employment, like what we have in South Africa. So overall impression is, I would say that I was particularly pleased to see that the number of companies that are willing to keep their staff is not as bad as I would have thought before the survey was conducted. But it's important also for government to pay attention to the fact that even out of the people who want to lay off staff, they're saying that if they get the right support from government, then they will keep those employees. So government has to ensure that their intervention is sufficient and is timely so that we can keep as many people in employment as possible.
That's commendable. We must commend them on that. Okay, now what advice do you have for tax authorities at national and subnational levels?
Yes, the number one advice that I'll have for tax authorities at national and sub-national level would be data. So we need to be able to collect data to be able to plan. If you don't have quality data and you're trying to do any national planning or economic planning or interventions, you find that you may be, trying to apply the wrong solution to a different problem. And the way to do this is for government to start with the data that they already have. When you mine those data and you analyze them, you find that you're able to get some insight from those data to be able to design your policy responses. And that would also go for, particularly in terms of coordination, which is the other recommendation I have for them. There has to be sufficient coordination among the tax authorities. This would be FRS, State Tax Authority, even Customs Service. All the agencies that are involved in revenue generation and collection for government need to come together and think about how do you respond to this crisis in the most effective way. So that is my recommendation for the tax authorities.
Okay, finally, let's look at taxpayers. Now, what advice do you have for taxpayers who want to keep afloat post-COVID, those who want to keep within the ambit of the law, even as times are hard?
Yeah, I think for taxpayers, it's important to realize that this is not the time to take advantage of government. If government is introducing palliatives or tax reliefs, but your sector is not negatively impacted, if you then go and join the queue to take advantage of what government is doing, then you're really not helping society, you're not helping the system, and that would be unethical. So I would also encourage taxpayers who are in a strong financial position. We know of some companies that are making more money even now because of COVID-19 than before COVID-19. Those kind of businesses should be up and doing in paying their taxes and filing their returns as at when due, so that we can have some more money to take care of the rest of the economy that are vulnerable. Overall, every taxpayer has to take the opportunity to look at their affairs to say, where can I get some efficiency out of my operations? How can I be sustainable, both in the short term and in the long term? And how can I contribute my quota towards making sure that Nigeria is able to survive this period with as little pain as possible?
Thank you very much, Mr. Oyedele.
Thank you for having me.
It takes two to tango, they say. The taxpayer pays, the FRS collects. For a smooth running of the tax administration system, cooperation is highly needed. We seek your cooperation. Nigeria, now we own, and Tax Matters is your program. Let's do this again next week. Remember, on this phase of the battle, our lives are in our hands. Wash your hands regularly. Take responsibility. Stay alive till we meet again. Bye for now.